Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Aliens and UFOs video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's start the next chapter here from the book UFO Sightings by Alan Baker. This one having to do with chapter 8 and a very interesting theme. One actually that hits close to home just from the other week. It's called Alien Underground, and basically the entire theme of the chapter are underground bases operated by both humans and aliens. Fascinating stuff, right? So there's going to be several segments associated with this theory, and then I'll present those along with my own thoughts and opinions. I'd love to hear what your comments are too with this very, very interesting concept. So without further ado, there's the first segment here that's called Area 51 S-4. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. And then once again, I'll continue the next chapters with this, the next parts of this chapter in future videos. So here's what it states. In recent years, stories of underground bases operated by both humans and aliens have not only come under the spotlight in the arcane field of ufology, but also, thanks to Area 51, have received greater exposure to the general public. This was consolidated in 1996 with the release of the science fiction adventure Independence Day, although the top secret base in that film shared little more than its name with the real Area 51. Notwithstanding the possibility that there may indeed be alien-controlled bases throughout the world, it is not always fully appreciated that the very concept itself has a rich provenance in human mythology. Certain Native American peoples, for instance, believe that the human race was born inside the earth and found its way to the surface through caves that are still considered to be sacred places. The notion of an underworld populated by non-human intelligences forms a hugely important part of myth systems from classical Greece to Christianity and on through theosophy of Madame Blavatsky, with its legends of the subterranean kingdom of Agartha to the present fascination with underground alien bases. It is well beyond the scope of the present book to examine the development of the subterranean myth in any detail, so let us look at the underworld in the modern technological context of the UFO phenomenon. As mentioned above, by far the most famous of these bases is Area 51, which is located in Groom Lake, a dry lake bed about 120 miles northwest of Las Vegas, Nevada. Area 51 is something of a mecca for aviation enthusiasts anxious to catch a glimpse of the sophisticated new aircraft that are undoubtedly being tested there. However, it is also the subject of intense fascination for those interested in UFOs, since countless strange aerial objects have been sighted in the vicinity, performing maneuvers that seem to defy the laws of physics, not to mention the physiology of their pilots. The general consensus among ufologists is that Area 51 and its companion site, known as S-4, are home to both captured alien spacecraft and human-built craft based on reverse-engineered extraterrestrial technology. One of the main reasons for these suspicions is the intense secrecy surrounding the sites. For instance, Groom Lake officially does not exist. It is not listed on Federal Aviation Administration pilots' charts and cannot be found on any U.S. Geological Survey map. This does not stop at least 10 Boeing 737 aircraft from busing workers and supplies into the area every day. Groom Lake has always been shrouded in secrecy ever since its construction in 1954 with the purpose of developing the U-2 spy plane. Its location in the remote Emigrant Valley was ideal for the test flights of the U-2, so much so that it was also the home of the U-2's replacement, the SR-71 Blackbird. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Groom Lake was where the U.S. Air Force built and tested the B-2 stealth bomber and the F-117A Nighthawk fighter. In 1984, the Pentagon applied to seize 89,000 acres of public land in Nevada in order to banish the prying eyes of enthusiasts. When it was subsequently found that there were still 3 good vantage points from which to view the facility, the Pentagon made a further application to seize an additional 4,000 acres, which, like the earlier application, was quickly approved by Congress in spite of vigorous public opposition. According to one congressional source who was able to visit Groom Lake thanks to his high level of security clearance, a mysterious technology is under development there, one that is not part of the official program of the U.S. government. Of course, the events described above are entirely understandable in a top secret research and development facility. Many ufologists point to the roving security teams and military helicopters that spy on sightseers as implying something deeply sinister. However, this activity would surely be expected at any military facility. For that matter, anyone snooping around any half-decent hotel should expect to be challenged by security sooner or later. Nevertheless, there is still the problem of the numerous UFO sightings in the area, not to mention the testimony of the now world-famous Robert Lazar, who claims to have worked under contract at S4 between 1987 and 1989. During that time, Lazar allegedly worked on at least one intact flying disc and saw 8 others in various states of disrepair. Lazar's story is at once astonishing and in parts utterly absurd, as Jacques Vallée points out in his book Revelations, Alien Contact and Human Deception. In an interview with Vallée, Lazar claimed that he was put to work on reverse engineering the propulsion system of a flying disc. The only equipment he had to help him in his monumental endeavor was a digital voltmeter and an oscilloscope. Elsewhere, Lazar has alleged that the team of scientists was attempting to figure out how an antimatter reactor worked. Their solution? Cut the thing open while it was up and running. The resulting explosion vaporized the scientists and obliterated several blast doors. According to Lazar, the alien ships are powered by transuranic elements not found on Earth. In fact, he was able to smuggle a small sample of element 115 out of the facility and test it at his house, which, with its homemade particle accelerator, seems to have been rather better equipped than S4. Interestingly, Lazar seems to know what he is talking about when describing the nature of element 115. When Vallée mentioned that he didn't think super heavy elements were stable, Lazar replied that there is a zone of stability for higher numbers above 110. This is in line with current theories on atomic physics, which indeed state that higher elements are expected to be relatively stable. Unfortunately, Robert Lazar's credibility has been called into question in many other areas, notably his qualifications in the field of nuclear physics and his claim to have been a consultant to the National Research Laboratory at Los Alamos. And yet, he remains adamant that he worked on alien spacecraft at S-4, and his claims have been backed up by a host of other whistleblowers who have come forward with strange and disturbing information regarding the activities of the aliens in our midst. As we delve deeper into the subject of secret bases, we shall see that Area 51 and S-4 are among the least bizarre of these shadowy and mysterious facilities. Next segment is called the Dulce Base. Perhaps the most outspoken writer on the subject of underground alien bases is a former military intelligence operative who calls himself Commander X. He has produced several books dealing with the alien presence on Earth, which, regardless of their veracity, are a treat for anyone interested in Fortean subjects, not least because of their strange stream of consciousness composition. The information he presents is worth considering because in many ways it is a distillation of both research and rumor, and as such represents the current state of the subterranean legend. Another well-known site of alleged alien activity is the base said to exist near the small New Mexico town of Dulce. It is here that the nefarious gray aliens have ensconced themselves since their secret treaty with the U.S. government, in which they were given permission to abduct humans and mutilate cattle in exchange for selected items of their own technology. In a bizarre twist to the alien presence scenario, the Greys are apparently native to Earth, have descended from a reptilian species which crossbred with early humans in the distant past. They are mercenary agents for these reptilians known as Draco, who are returning to the Earth inside a gigantic planetoid starship. According to some of the more extreme ufologists, the unidentified object said to be accompanying Comet Hale-Bopp on its journey towards the inner solar system is none other than the Draco ship. The primary function of the Dulce Base is said to be that of a genetic engineering laboratory in which the hapless victims of alien abduction are experimented upon in a variety of hideous ways. For some reason which is not readily apparent, the Greys are fond of crossbreeding humans with various animals. People who claim to have worked there tell awful stories of beings that are half human and half octopus, half bat, or half reptile. Other experiments center on attempts to remove the soul from the body and reimplant it elsewhere. These programs are directed by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, and related projects are conducted by the Jason Society, a group of elite scientists working at the Sandia National Laboratories in Albuquerque, New Mexico. One of the most appalling programs under development at the Dulce Base involves disposable biology, genetically engineered humanoid beings created to provide a slave labor force to do dangerous atomic, plutonium, rocket, and saucer experiments. According to Commander X, the U.S. government has been doing its own share of impregnating human females and removing the fetuses to produce hybrid beings. The results of these experiments receive brain implants which enable them to be controlled via radio frequency transmissions. Human abductees are also implanted with brain transceivers, which allow telepathic control and manipulation of thoughts and even memories. By these means, the people who are unfortunate enough to be implanted can be made to feel nausea, irritability, fatigue, or even the sensation of death. Commander X tells us that this is basically the same thing as the deleterious ray described by Richard Shaver in his tales of the malignant Deros who live far underground in vast cavern systems. This is a further illustration of the immense influence that the so-called Shaver mystery has had over UFO conspiracy theory. The base itself is said to be composed of a central hub surrounded by many levels, which sounds suspiciously like the wildfire facility in Michael Crichton's The Andromeda Strain. The complex can be reached through more than 100 hidden entrances located at various points around the town of Dulce and the nearby Archuleta Mesa. The deeper levels of the base feed into huge natural cavern systems. According to one naturally unnamed source who had worked there, most of the aliens are on level 5, 6, and 7. Alien housing is on level 5. There are apparently more than 18,000 aliens living and working in the Dulce Base. In 1979, other sources give different dates. There was a serious confrontation at the base between the aliens and the human personnel. 66 humans were killed, apparently because they insisted on carrying loaded weapons through a certain force field, which caused the bullets to explode. One of the most notable features of bases like Dulce and Area 51 is the size. The Dulce base is supposed to be the size of Manhattan, and yet, here we run into another absurdity, as if we had not met enough already. When Jacques Vallée was first told of the New Mexico facility and its colossal size, he asked, "Who takes out the garbage?" This may sound like a rather facetious question, but it is a fair one. A base the size of Manhattan would produce an enormous amount of waste, which would have to be disposed of unobtrusively somehow. In addition, its heat signature would stick out like a sore thumb on any satellite imagery, including that of the old Landsats, which are available to universities all over the world. In short, it is unlikely that the Dulce base exists. At the very least, it is certainly not the size of Manhattan. Let's go ahead then. We'll pause that here and then let's give our thoughts and opinions on it. Once again, these two segments give a good idea of essentially the theme of this chapter. It's all about alien bases that are underground. The first segment is Area 51. How about that? Small world. So I was going to tell y'all as a secret, but let me go ahead and I'll share it right now. The other week, I was actually there at Area 51 in Las Vegas. I was able to go on another tour, and I was able to visit both the front and the back entrance and then stop at the infamous area that the mailbox used to be at. So when this chapter was going over the secrecy of Groom Lake and then, of course, of the military or personnel, security personnel there, because they're not necessarily military, and then some of the other equipment that they use, they're absolutely right. We were there, and immediately we were greeted by the infamous camo dudes, and we even believe we saw one there driving by as well, like driving past us at a certain location, at a certain road. So it was pretty neat that this chapter covers it. Who knows, though, what Groom Lake truly has? I think it may be a case of truth being stranger than fiction, where not telling what's exactly happening there has caused people's imaginations to go beyond things. I think that if there truly was aliens there, something would have been leaked by now just by pure human nature, but who knows? But in other words, there's still, though, the other evidence as far as the aircraft, the UFOs and stuff that are spotted nearby at night. That's going to be a future trip, by the way, too, something that's being planned to spend the night over there. So interesting stuff involving Area 51. Very large base. Very true as well about those public areas. I'm sorry, the acres of public land that are purchased several times over to make sure that there's no vantage points available anymore for anyone trying to spy on Area 51. It is absolutely 100% true. Next one, the Dulce Base. Hadn't really heard too much this one. I might talk about it in a future video, but it was fascinating for me to think that this is basically Black Mesa from the Half-Life games. Something underground, something doing some kind of experiments. In this case, Dulce Base apparently on half-breeds, and in the case of Black Mesa, it was more of interdimensional travel, but both of them involving weird alien technology at the very same time. Both of them also very, very large. Anyone can remember that wonderful opening of the original Half-Life game where you got to explore through a train system, almost the entirety of that base. It was so good, such a great way to introduce the game itself. So hearing that Dulce Base is apparently the size of Manhattan, all underground, multiple levels, and then you have some of those levels with alien housing, 18,000 aliens living in there. Fascinating stuff. Whether it's true or false, it definitely makes good information to speculate about, good information on TV shows too. So I might talk about that soon. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.